Welcome to the Story of Us by Scoob, where we embark on an extraordinary journey through the aromatic corridors of history. I'm your host, Madison Reed, and today we're going to explore one of humanity's most intimate and mysterious relationships, our connection with scent. From the smoky caves of our earliest ancestors to the opulent courts of ancient empires, fragrance has been our constant companion, shaping cultures, defining identities, and even bridging the gap between the earthly and the divine. Imagine, if you will, closing your eyes and letting a single drop of rose oil transport you back thousands of years. That same intoxicating scent once whispered, Allah, Allah, in Persian gardens, perfumed the walls of Roman palaces, and emanated from the very bodies of saints. Today, we'll uncover these incredible stories and discover how our ancestors didn't just smell the world around them, they transformed it into something magical. Our story begins in the flickering shadows of prehistoric caves, where our earliest ancestors huddled around fires that would inadvertently unlock one of humanity's greatest discoveries. Picture this: early humans, completely reliant on their sense of smell to determine what was safe to eat, a far more reliable method than taste, which could prove fatal with just one wrong bite. As they gathered around their fires, burning different woods for warmth and light, something remarkable happened. They began to notice that certain woods produced the most incredible, soothing aromas, while others were harsh and unpleasant. The sweet smoke of burning laurel, the calming essence of sandalwood, these weren't just pleasant scents to our ancestors. They were magic itself, rising from the flames like spirits. This discovery was so profound that it shaped religious practices that continue today. The priestesses at Delphi burned laurel wood during their sacred ceremonies, breathing in the aromatic smoke to invoke prophetic visions. Halfway around the world, in India and Java, priests still inhale aromatic smoke to aid in divination, carrying forward a tradition that began in those ancient caves. But our prehistoric ancestors didn't stop there. With limited understanding of their own bodies, gleaned mostly from butchering animals for food, they began experimenting with the natural world around them. Through trial and observation, they discovered that different fragrances could mask unpleasant odors, create an aura of beauty, provide calming effects, and even promote healing. They became keen observers of the animal kingdom, watching as sick animals instinctively sought out certain plants and herbs. Rural communities discovered that dogs could be soothed with a combination of copaiba, aniseed, and rhodium scents, while horses favored handlers who carried the aroma of fennel. These weren't random discoveries. They were the foundation stones of aromatherapy, perfumery, and medicine. From those cave fires, we leap forward to ancient Egypt, around 3,500 BCE, where fragrance took on divine significance. The Egyptians didn't just use scents, they believed that gods themselves lived within the fragrances and petals of flowers. Imagine entering a temple dedicated to Ra, the sun god, and finding him depicted amidst vast arrangements of flowers, the air thick with frankincense burned by priestesses in sacred sanctuaries. The Egyptians understood something profound about the power of volume and specificity in floral offerings. Statues of gods were completely encircled by tributes, and certain flowers, like the everlasting flower, were reserved exclusively for specific deities due to their unique characteristics. The everlasting flower's longevity made it perfect for gods who represented eternal concepts. This practice created such a strong connection between fragrance and divinity that it survived through millennia. Walk into any church today during Harvest Festival, and you'll see the same principle at work: wildflowers and plants adorning altars, candles burning with aromatic intensity. These modern celebrations stem directly from those ancient pagan rituals that our Egyptian predecessors perfected. But perhaps the most incredible testament to Egyptian perfumery came in 1922, during the excavation of Tutankhamun's tomb. Howard Carter and his team discovered a sealed alabaster vase that, after over 3,000 years, still emitted a faint but unmistakable fragrance. 3 millennia couldn't diminish the power of those ancient aromatic substances, a testament to both their skill and the enduring nature of scent itself. No civilization captured the spiritual essence of flowers and fragrance quite like Islamic culture. Here, flowers weren't merely decorative, they embodied the highest spiritual achievements, particularly among the Sufis, the mystical branch of Islam. The rose reigned supreme in this aromatic kingdom. Persian mystic Yunus Emre believed that the rose's perfume literally whispered, Allah, Allah. Imagine that level of spiritual connection to scent. The rose became the first flower to undergo distillation, creating the exquisite rose attar that became a cornerstone of Islamic society. In Persia, hospitality reached aromatic heights. Guests were greeted not just with kind words, but with droplets of rose attar spritzed from an elegant device called a gulabdan. This wasn't just courtesy, it was a spiritual welcoming, anointing visitors with the essence of paradise itself. The poetry of this era reveals just how deeply fragrance permeated Islamic consciousness. Muhammad Iqbal wrote of roses as symbols of unity amid diversity, while another tradition claims that roses originated from a divine drop of Prophet Muhammad's sweat as he ascended to heaven. Every flower held meaning. The narcissus, with its white eye, urged mindfulness of divine brilliance, while the violet, bent in devotion, resembled the faithful bowing in prayer. The great poet Hafiz famously declared he would rather purchase a hyacinth than a loaf of bread, considering fragrant flowers to be sustenance for the soul. This wasn't poetic hyperbole. It was a fundamental philosophy that placed spiritual nourishment above physical need. Arab women elevated cosmetics and perfumes to an art form, particularly after bathing rituals. They created the famous kohl, that deep black mascara made from finely ground antimony sulfide that later gave its name to alcohol when Italian alchemists adapted the Arabic term kohl for their refined essence of wine. The most ingenious creation was fragrant jewelry. Aromatics blended into paste with gum arabic, then crafted into beads that released scents of sandalwood, frankincense, mastic, saffron, and musk when warmed by body temperature. These weren't just accessories, they were wearable perfumes, often interspersed with coral or pearls, creating both visual and olfactory beauty. Here's something that might surprise our modern sensibilities. In ancient times, perfume was predominantly a man's world. In pre-Greek Crete, athletes coated themselves with aromatic oils before games, not for vanity, but as symbols of their prowess and readiness for competition. By 400 BC, Greek men had developed an incredibly sophisticated system for scent application. They had specific recommendations for every body part: mint for the arms, thyme for the knees, cinnamon or rose for the chest and jaws, almond oil for hands and feet, and marjoram for hair and eyebrows. This wasn't random experimentation. It was a carefully planned aromatic strategy designed to enhance personal appeal and project vigor. Egyptian men took this even further. At dinner parties, hosts welcomed male guests with flower garlands and offered them a choice of preferred perfumes. They scattered flower petals on the ground so guests would release fragrance with every step, and designed banquet statues to emit scented water throughout the evening. Before retiring, Egyptian men would crush solid perfume into powder and sprinkle it on their beds, ensuring their sleep was perfumed with pleasant fragrances. Even the mighty Alexander the Great was known for his love of perfumes and incense, with a particular attachment to saffron that led him to soak his tunics in its golden essence. Babylonian and Syrian men went even further, adorning themselves with elaborate makeup and meticulously styled hair enhanced with perfumed oils. But it was Roman society that truly perfected male fragrance culture. Roman men didn't just wear perfume. They bathed in it, saturated their clothes with it, and even applied it to their horses and pets. Gladiators had their own scent rituals, applying different fragrances to specific body parts before entering the arena, engaging in what we might call scented locker room conversations before combat. The Romans reached such heights of olfactory excess that Emperor Nero allegedly ordered Lake Lucina to be covered in rose petals for one of his feasts and insisted on sleeping on beds of perfectly arranged rose petals. None could be curled, as that might disturb his imperial slumber. The rise of Christianity brought a fascinating transformation to the world of fragrance. While the new religion initially embraced austerity and viewed perfumes as potentially indulgent, it couldn't entirely abandon humanity's deep connection to scent. Instead, Christianity transformed fragrance into something divine, the sweet smell of sanctity. Saints, according to Christian belief, carried lovely scents as evidence of their holiness and purity. Teresa of Avila was renowned for a potent fragrance that perfumed everything she touched. Saint Polycarp was said to be imbued with the odor of Christ, suggesting he had been anointed with sacred fragrant oils that permeated his very being. Pope Benedict XIV once observed that it was highly improbable for a naturally pleasant smell to emanate from the human body, concluding that such fragrances must be of miraculous divine origin. This fragrant aura became evidence of a devout connection to God, a spiritual perfume that transcended earthly scents. The concept extended beyond individual saints to paradise itself. Early Christian theologians described heaven as a boundless prairie perpetually filled with extraordinary scents. Gregory of Tours painted images of divine meadows, while St. Maximus wrote of an inimitable ambrosial odor arising from the most beautiful springtime flowers. This wasn't unique to Christianity. Hindu tradition envisioned the afterlife abundant with perfumes and flowers, including a unique blue flower which, Brahmins say, blooms nowhere but in paradise. The Quran described Islamic paradise with ground made of pure wheat flour, interwoven with musk and saffron. Christian apparitions often carried floral signatures. The 1531 apparition of Our Lady of Guadalupe included Mary directing Juan Diego to gather flowers from a previously barren hill. When he presented them to the archbishop, the flowers fell away, leaving an image of the Virgin on his cloak, a miracle accompanied by divine fragrance. Saint Bernard eloquently captured this connection, describing Mary as the rose of charity, the lily of chastity, violet of humility, and the golden gillyflower of heaven. This imagery linked women with virtue, warmth, and love, while associating saints with divinity, compassion, and benevolence. The creation of perfume, as we understand it today, required a crucial development: alchemy. This wasn't just ancient chemistry, it was a mystical art that sought to transform raw matter into perfect, purified forms through a series of sacred transformations. Alchemy found its most significant development in medieval Europe, extending well into the 17th century. Alchemists were secretive figures who typically worked alone in secluded laboratories, rarely accepting apprentices or joining societies. Yet despite their secrecy, they left behind extensive records, frequently citing one another while largely agreeing on principles that remain mysteriously ambiguous. Carl Jung, the renowned psychologist who studied alchemy extensively, captured this mystery perfectly. In my opinion, it is quite hopeless to try to establish any kind of order in the infinite chaos of substances. Alchemical writings often left readers in most impenetrable darkness, as substances could signify almost anything. Even alchemists themselves sometimes appeared bewildered by their own interpretations. Jung offered a fascinating explanation for this obscurity. While alchemists demonstrated genuine interest in chemistry, their true fascination lay in using alchemical terminology to describe and explore psychic transformations. Each alchemist constructed a unique framework of ideas, drawing upon philosophical maxims and diverse analogies that were so expansive that entire treatises were written specifically to provide material for creating analogies. This psychological approach of endless amplification was perfect for ambiguous experiences that required extensive contextual enlargement to be comprehensible. Alchemists believed their pursuits were divinely inspired, requiring divine intervention for true success. Alchemy wasn't a profession, It was a calling for those with an inherent ability to grasp its metaphors and express unique interpretations. Most crucially for our story, alchemists refined the process of distillation, the advancement that made modern perfumery possible. Their mystical chemistry experiments laid the groundwork not just for fragrance creation, but for winemaking, chemistry, and numerous other scientific disciplines. During the 16th and 17th centuries, something extraordinary happened. The worlds of occultism, perfumery, medicine, and religion began to intertwine in the most fascinating ways. Eric Maple, a renowned expert on magic and perfume, noted that numerous occultists continued to employ aromatics exactly as their ancient ancestors had. Nowhere was this more evident than in 17th century Paris, where perfumers' shops resembled sorcerers' chambers. These establishments featured decor that would make modern customers gasp. Dried mummies and stuffed ibises adorned the walls, serving as visual reminders to fashionable clientele of aromatic's deep connection with Egyptian magic's sophisticated intricacies. These perfumers understood something profound about the connection between sexual allure and the occult. They enhanced their establishments with special lamps that created eerie ambiances, recognizing that fragrance existed at the intersection of the physical and mystical worlds. This connection had ancient roots. Plutarch described the river Lethe as releasing sensual and intoxicating aromas akin to wine's intoxication. Across numerous traditions, paradise was consistently envisioned as a realm filled with delightful scents, indicating a long-standing belief in the divine nature of beautiful fragrances. The practical applications were equally mystical. In some Western cultures, a combination of sandalwood, hemlock, and coriander, when burned, was believed to summon demons, with henbane's addition enhancing the supernatural experience. In Haiti's voodoo traditions, perfume and magic remained intricately connected, continuing practices that stretched back to humanity's earliest spiritual experiments. Various religious narratives depicted gods and goddesses spreading perfumes as symbols of their divine grace and beauty. In Hindu tradition, Krishna was said to emit the scent of celestial flowers. In Greek tragedy, Euripides wrote of Hippolytus recognizing the goddess Diana's presence through her divine fragrance. Ancient religious scholars argued that incense in worship served to convey divine odor to worshippers. This concept of supernatural scent as a bridge between human and divine experience represented one of perfumery's most profound philosophical foundations. The idea that fragrance could literally transport consciousness to higher realms. The Crusades marked a pivotal moment in European fragrance history, as knights returning from the Holy Lands brought with them aromatic treasures that would transform Western scent culture forever. Rose water became a staple of their regalia, introducing European nobility to refined Eastern fragrance traditions that had been developing for centuries. This cultural exchange reached its pinnacle in the opulent courts of Louis XIV and Louis XV, where the integration of scent into daily life achieved unprecedented heights. Louis XIV, the Sun King, employed servants whose sole responsibility was to perfume his living spaces and personal apparel. His obsession with fragrance was so intense that he demanded a completely new scent be crafted for him each day. Imagine the pressure on court perfumers to continuously innovate. The court of Louis XV took theatrical aromatics even further, famously using scented doves during dinner parties. These birds, released to fly through banquet halls, created moving clouds of fragrance that enhanced the atmospheric aroma as noble guests dined below. This wasn't just luxury, it was performance art involving scent as the primary medium. However, these periods of olfactory extravagance were punctuated by times of restraint. The Puritan influence brought temporary declines in scent usage as their emphasis on simplicity and restraint viewed elaborate fragrances as potentially sinful indulgences. Yet the allure of fragrance proved impossible to suppress permanently. Even during Christian periods that favored austerity, flowers maintained symbolic religious significance. The carnation became particularly favored because its clove-like aroma evoked imagery of Christ's crucifixion. Even religious restraint found ways to incorporate meaningful scent connections. These cultural oscillations between fragrant excess and aromatic restraint illustrate something fundamental about human nature. Our relationship with scent is so deeply embedded in our consciousness that even the most austere religious or social movements cannot completely eliminate it. Instead, they transform it, redirect it, or find spiritual justifications for its continued presence. As we near the end of our aromatic journey, it's worth reflecting on perhaps the most remarkable aspect of fragrance history: its universal nature. Across every culture, every religion, every time period we've explored, the association between beautiful scents and divine experience appears consistently. The pleasant scents associated with spiritual encounters are primarily linked to saints and female spirits, often categorized into floral scents and perfume scents. Flowers, particularly roses and lilacs, appear repeatedly in religious visions across cultures. The presence of flower scents is especially notable in apparitions of the Blessed Virgin Mary, where actual petals may accompany the spiritual visions. This connection stems from ancient perceptions associating women with virtue, warmth, love, and gentility, just as saints, regardless of gender, are associated with divinity, compassion, and benevolence. As one scholar noted, it's unsurprising that pleasant smells link with holiness, since saints, due to their special connection with the divine, effectively dwell in the anterooms of paradise. Paradise itself has been consistently depicted across cultures as a place suffused with exquisite scents. Ancient writers described heavenly realms with delicate and suave exhalations of strangely voluptuous odors, creating intoxication similar to wine's effects. Early Christian theologians expressed similar imagery, depicting heaven as boundless prairies, perpetually filled with extraordinary scents from inimitable ambrosial flowers. This hedonic association between delightful scents and heaven transcends cultural boundaries. Hindu tradition envisions the afterlife abundant with perfumes and mysterious flowers that bloom nowhere but in paradise. Islamic texts describe paradise with ground made of pure wheat flour interwoven with musk and saffron. The practice of using fragrant oils to prepare bodies for the afterlife appears across civilizations, from ancient Egyptians to Aztec cultures, reflecting this universal appreciation for scent as a bridge between earthly and eternal existence. As our journey through the perfumed corridors of history ends, one thing's clear: fragrance is more than a pleasant note. It's a bridge to memory, belief, and identity. From the first smoky rituals of prehistoric fires to rose-scented mystics and Parisian ateliers, scent has shaped how we worship, love, fight, and remember. Every time you inhale a familiar aroma, you join that long conversation between earth and the divine, a living thread that ties emperors, poets, saints, and ordinary people together. Curious about the hidden rituals, lost recipes, and scandalous secrets we couldn't fit here? There's a chapter that changes everything. Download the Scoob app now to get access to the full story. Listen to exclusive episodes, archival finds, and extended interviews, only on Scoob. Thanks for listening to The Story of Us. Until our next aromatic adventure, keep smelling the stories around you.